Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to this BAFTA EE Rising Star session with Cynthia Erivo. We will be doing some audience questions as well, so keep those in mind. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you.
You got the blue suit memo?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's take it all the way back to the beginning, the start of your career. Your early inspirations was acting and singing, always there.
I started singing when I was about 5. I did the nativity play and they asked me to sing Silent Night. I don't know why. I wasn't playing a main character. I think I was playing a shepherd. So I think I was just this chatty kid who didn't seem shy about anything, and I think they may have heard me humming or doing something, and they asked me to sing this song, and I remember that after I'd finished, it felt like people were happy with me, and I think, you know, when you're a kid, it's sort of, there's no grey area, it's like black and white, so if I'm singing, then this makes people happy, so I'm going to keep doing that. And I think I still have that a little bit in me, where I know that it makes people happy, so I continue to do it. And then when I was about 11, I realised that I enjoyed being able to tell stories through the eyes of other people, telling other stories and creating stories and playing characters. It was just another outlet for me to be creative, and that's sort of how it all started, really, yeah.
And then did you go down a traditional drama school route or?
By accident. I went to, finished school, went to secondary school, went to sixth form, then I went to university. I started studying music psychology and was doing really well, but it was not stimulating at all. And I found myself hating every moment I was there. And I was finishing the dissertations and papers without actually having to be there, but still passing them. And it just felt like something was wrong. So at the same time, I was doing extracurricular activities where it was like a young actors company or a youth company for this, and I did a young actors company at Stratford Theatre Royal. And a woman I worked with when I was 15, when I did a young actors group at the Young Vic, happened to be taking this course that I was doing at Stratford Theatre Royal, and she asked me if I was training, and I didn't know what she meant. And she asked me if I was going to drama school, and I said, well, no, that's impossible. How am I going to do that? She said, well, you should come up to my office and we're going to fill in the form for RADA. I said, what's RADA? She said, Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. I said, absolutely not. That's not happening. I'm not doing it. She said, well, why not? I said, because I'm not going to get in, so why am I going to do that? It's a waste of time. She said, get up to my office and we'll fill in the application forms. I said, no. She said, we're going to fill out the application forms or you can't do this course. I said, that's not fair. She said, I don't care. So I, under duress, filled in the application form for the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, and me thinking it was like, I'm going to be like dramatic and I'm not filling anything else out. I won't fill any other application forms out. Didn't fill anything out, but got into RADA, so boo me and yay me at the same time. And so that's sort of what began the story. I ended up going the traditional route by accident, yeah.
And what did RADA give you? Do you think that you might not have? Did it speed things up?
I think so. I think one of the reasons I sort of relented was because I knew I wanted to pursue a career in the creative arts, but I also didn't want to give anyone a reason to say no. So I knew that training would be a key to me being able to do the thing I wanted to do. But the thing that I really got from being there was access to vulnerability, which I don't think I knew how to do before I had gone there.
That's interesting.
You know, you're sort of afraid to show that part of you. And for me, I was encouraged not to. So being there gave me the keys and the access to that part of my being, which I think has allowed me to be a part and play authentically the characters that I've been given so far. So, yeah.
I know that we're skipping ahead a little bit, but then how did you land that role in The Colour Purple?
I fought for it, very much so. I found out that it was coming to London, hounded my agent to get me seen, they wouldn't see me. Hounded her again, she hounded them, they wouldn't see me. A friend of mine, Jason Pennycook, then knew, I think, the artistic director of the Meunier and said, you need to see this girl. And so they relented and sent me 4 sides of 4 scenes and 2 songs to learn in 2 nights. I am stubborn and will not take no for an answer, so I learnt everything like the back of my hand and went in the next 2 days and did everything for them and left them weeping.
That's
Yeah. So we did this little play at the Meunier, and like I think it was 2 weeks into it, one of the producers from New York asked if I would go to Broadway with it, and I thought he was joking. So I did this really like English thing. I went, oh, if you have me, it'd be really great. Not thinking anything of it, and then sort of cut to a month later, me sitting in the office and them saying, oh, it's going to Broadway, we're taking you with it, we just need to find a theatre, and once we've done that. And so I was like, okay, when you find a theatre, then they find a theatre, and it's happening. I'm like, okay, when I get a ticket, and they have my ticket, here's your dates for leaving, and you're sort of like, okay, when the date comes, when I'm actually leaving, gets to the I think it was the 23rd of September 2015, when I'm at the airport thinking, okay, I'm leaving now to do this play, and that's sort of the journey to Broadway.
And you've been in the US since,
Yes. Yeah.
So you get to Broadway, you get to New York. How different is it? How different is Broadway in the West End and working even in TV here? How is it monumentally a different machine?
I think it is. It moves very differently. It's faster. It can spin you off your feet if you're not sort of grounded. But I was lucky because I had the director, John Doyle, who did the show with us in London. So it felt like I had an anchor, which was, I felt lucky for that, because it felt like I could, when I felt like I was drifting somewhere, I could just go back to him. He was like I was the homing pigeon for John, and that was very helpful. But once that finished, I just didn't know that I would end up veering into film as quickly as I did. So I guess one day, Francine Maisler, who cast me in Widows, came to see the show. I didn't know. She went and told Steve about me for this character, and the next thing I know, I'm sitting on the couch talking to Steve about Widows, really trying to play down my like nervousness and starry-eyedness as we're sat in the Standard Hotel, sort of like, hi,
Pick me.
what, talking about this role, and I didn't expect it to go my way, and it did, and that sort of everything just happened. It was almost like my eyes were closed, I blinked and stuff was happening, and I've been trying to sort of play catch up. I think I've caught up a little bit, but I've been playing catch up for a while.
Well, we've got 2 clips from Widows, and I think we should maybe show them back to back, if that's okay.
Yeah.
But let's look at Widows. I'm sure you've all seen it, but let's get a little reminder. So Widows, based on the original British TV show. Did you see it? Did you watch it as Reese? No. Is that a kind of directive from Steve, or was that just for you going, I don't want to be influenced?
Yeah, I whenever something is based on something, I'd rather not be influenced by that thing, because it means that I just don't want to end up copying something. So I wanted it to feel like it came from me, like it was fresh. And I think Steve would rather that as well, to be honest, yeah.
So you had theatre, your training ground in a sense, the on-camera stuff is based up until that point in British TV.
Yeah.
What was the shift kind of going from like a very British ethos, kind of, domestic TV working scenario to doing big budget, Steve McQueen, US?
The jump was really big, because I think I had only played like 2 small roles on a TV set. So I didn't have very much experience in that either. So it really felt like I went from theatre to film. And that's a massive jump. And so I kind of was learning on the job as we were going along. It's really, really lucky to have Viola Davis in front of you, because you sort of learn by osmosis.
Or
and you
terrifying?
watch. Do you know what? Not terrifying, because she's not terrifying. She's amazing. And so you have a mentor by accident. And I've been talking to her ever since, and it was just having her in the room and having her around was great for me, because I could watch what was going on, and I was learning as we were going along, and I didn't have to change very much of what I knew to do, but it was learning the method by watching her and others that have done it before.
When you're saying, obviously, not from any kind of acting background myself, and you're saying the complete, polar polarities of theatre and film, what are the, besides the obvious differences, the repetition or, the every night, how in terms of your acting, how is that completely different?
I don't know that I changed my acting per se. Obviously, from character to character, it's different. The aim of anything I do when it comes to character work or anything, whether it be theatre or film, is to tell the truth of the moment, tell the truth of the character, tell the truth of the story. And if that's where it starts from, then you can't really go too far wrong. So it's impossible to go overboard if you're telling the truth. If the truth requires you to be loud and over the top, then the truth requires you to be loud and over the top, and it's probably still not going to be too far from what you need. But if it needs something quieter, then that's what it requires. So I think that I've decided that if I stem it in that, if I root the character work and the work that I do in telling the truth, then I can't go too far wrong. And that's where I've started from. That tends to be where I lead from. Yeah.
You've got a snapshot of Belle's life in the film. But did Steve give you any more information, any more kind of backstory? What were the key pieces of advice he gave you?
He's very sweet. The thing that he kept saying was that I didn't need to try to do anything. A lot of what was there because of what I could do. So there's a scene where I'm boxing that came in after we had started filming, because he knew what I could do. The running, the way I ran, came in because he knew I could do. Yeah. So all of the things that I was doing, all the physical things, they came in because I was already able to be that physical. What he did tell me is that this is a woman who doesn't particularly need anyone to get along. She's been doing very well on her own, but she sees an opportunity to make her life and her child's life better. And there is nothing that will stop her from making sure that that's the decision she makes to do that. So, but she's also a person that cares. He wanted to make sure that Belle came across as a woman with strength and vulnerability, but who didn't need anyone's validation.
It has been obviously spoken about a lot, and it's a focal point that, perhaps hopefully in a few years won't be a focal point, that it's a female-led cast with 4 incredibly great female leads. Could you feel that, or you just let us?
Yeah. The first time we met, we were all together in a restaurant which was very, very highbrow. And we were the loudest things in the room, just loud, really laughter, loud, jokes, loud. Viola's having a vodka there, we're laughing about this. Steve is like, oh my goodness, what's happening? And it just felt like 4 really different women who still had a wonderful commonality and this camaraderie. And it was natural. We didn't have to try to make it happen, because neither one of us was afraid of being ourselves. And I think that's what led to the chemistry that we have on screen together, because there's no apology for it. Yeah, I think so.
And then the film got almost immediately, was it after that, Bad Times at the El Royale?
Yeah.
How, in timing-wise, how did you go from one straight to the other, or
filming?
Yeah.
No. So between Widows and Bad Times, I filmed 2 others.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. So if Bad Times at the El Royale, which I don't know how many of you have seen, I love. it is, God, how would you, I'm trying to think how we'd describe it.
It's like film noir mixed with thriller and great music set in the 60s.
But not definitively
Not
so.
definitively so. Yeah, it's a mix match of different themes and variations, but it's really cool.
So it is, I don't know, tell me, for you, the perfect marriage of film and music.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
great. Let's take a look. We've got 2 scenes from the film cut almost immediately, one after the other. Let's take a look. I've got these wild images of you and Jeff Bridges just jamming between takes and stuff.
Jeff and I would spend a lot of time just talking about stuff, really. We spent so much time together on the movie that we ended up bonding over music, and he would like send a video over and it'd be like, I think he sent something about James Brown, and then it would be something else about the, I don't know, Staple Sisters, and then because he has such a love for music, and we sort of bonded over that. We didn't get to jam ourselves because we just didn't have enough time, but like he would bring out his guitar and he would probably play to himself, and then we just had a really good time together. He's a really wonderful person. Yeah.
It seems that, I don't know, if I watching the film, it seems like it was a lot of fun to make it.
Yeah.
I know you've done others in between, but what were the different dynamics from Widows and this, kind of in terms of directing, in terms of, you know, just for you as someone that's like new to film? They seem
like they're miles apart, the two of them. This one felt more like a jump into the deep end, because I don't know that I realised how much I was in it until I read the entire thing, because I couldn't read the entire script until I had been cast. So I remember I was at the airport and I'm sort of going through the script and I'm highlighting, and the highlighting doesn't stop, and I'm turning the page and I'm there again, okay? Turning the page, then you start reading the description and you're like, oh, this is just me. That's my viewpoint, and I'm in the rain for 3 pages. Where? What did I sign up to? And it's finding that and then sort of working myself up to being ready to do that. And I had the greatest time on it. I think that after having done Widows, I felt like I was ready to take on that kind of beast, really and truly, because I knew that I had the vocal ability to sing, and that was a new thing where, you know, I think that take, we did, I think 17 of those. And then there's a scene where John Hamm walks through the corridor, and I sing as he's looking into each of the rooms, and we did that 23 times straight through, all live takes. And I think the last take is the one that they wanted to use. And so that was a new thing, like working out how to, 1, keep it fresh every time I would sing it, and 2, be ready to keep singing it that many times. And there's another scene where I'm in the rain a lot. That was 14 days of standing in the rain. And like, studio rain is not a joke, is really something. And so you're sort of mentally trying to figure out how to not feel cold, or deal with how damp everything is, or like still be alert when your body is trying to freeze. Those kind of things. But, you know, after doing that, that helped to move on to other roles. I really did have a good time on this, because both directors were so generous and giving of their time that it felt like it was a collaborative effort to get this piece done. Especially with this, there's a little speech in it that I give to Chris Hemsworth, who is playing Billy Lee, and Drew and I had asked Drew if Darlene could speak up for herself at that moment, because it felt like it was necessary, and he totally agreed. He said, write me something that you might like to say, and I will diffuse that and then give you the thing that Darlene would say. So that's what happened. It was like back and forth, and he came up with this beautiful, succinct speech, and that's what ended up being in the film. It wasn't there when we started.
So they're given that freedom.
Yeah, it felt like I had complete freedom to like play, which is great, really. Yeah.
And that can only, I suppose, come with time and confidence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to open it up to the audience now. There's a couple of roving mics, maybe one. So if you've got two questions, so we'll go to the lady first. We'll come to you.
Hi, thank you very much. Just so you know, I stalked you to New York and saw you in the colour purple. It was absolutely amazing. Thank you for that. My question is, observing you through Instagram and so on, it seems to be a very exciting community of Nigerians and Africans in America, supporting each other and producing fresh, new products and so on. How is that for you being there, and is it different from what you experienced being in the UK? And how important is it for authentic voices coming through film and TV and so on generally?
I do feel like there's a wonderful community of people in New York particularly, but America over, because we're sort of spread out all over the place, where we sort of come together just to make sure that we support one another, which is it's just a helpful thing to know that you have a network of support that you can go to if you're not sure about something and you just want to discuss it with friends who have other outlooks and insight on something that you might not be able to see from the inside of. And I think that's really helped me in these last 3 years, because I definitely felt like a fish out of water. That first year when I was in New York, it did feel like I was sort of by myself, because it was, I'm finding my feet and trying to figure out where I am. I'm trying to navigate through New York at the same time I'm doing a massive play, and you know, all of that's happening all at once, and being able to like stumble across these people who are like, hey, we can help if you want it. So that was really helpful, and I think it's ever growing. And what's happening is we reach out to people who might just want to have some advice and talk for a little bit, and that keeps growing, and it's a wonderful thing. And then within that, you have the theatre community, who just is the most enveloping thing you can think of. If you're part of it, then you're part of it. You're all family once you're in the theatre community, which is a wonderful thing, which I think is slightly different here, because it feels like from show to show, there's community within each show, but there's not much of a joining up between shows, which I think is so important, because it when it's separate like that, it's almost like it's you against you, or we're against this cast, when really we're a bunch of people who are, you know, on stage playing different characters, and we kind of all need support from each other anyway. And so when that happens, when there's a joining of people, it makes life easier, because there isn't really competition, just support. And I think that's something that was very different to what I had experienced here, over there. Yeah.
Thank you.
I see another hand.
Hi. Hi, Cynthia.
Hello.
So the last time, I'm not sure if you remember me, but the last time I saw you and spent any time with you, we actually had a sound check at a venue around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Charlene. Yes.
Yes.
And we walked along Piccadilly.
Yes.
And you showed me where the Whole Foods was. And we had that conversation.
Yeah.
And then you were on The Colour Purple. And I was like, what? Because it was just amazing to watch you bloom and blossom. And my question is, because you mentioned something about the artist scene in London, and I was nodding along to what you were saying, because you're right, it can be quite closeted in a sense. But what I do know for sure is that transitions in any area of life, it takes a certain mindset. So what I want to know is, how did you allow for this transition to occur? What were the psychological and emotional happenings going on? Because it's a big change to go from the singing scene that we were both on as an artist, as an actress, and then to go to New York, where you've said you knew nobody, you're in a foreign country. I really want to understand from a psychological and emotional perspective what that journey was like for you. I'd love to know.
I'll start at the day I went on the flight. Genuinely, it was a 50-50 chance about whether I would get on the flight or not. I remember that I was really, really frightened about leaving my family behind and leaving what I knew very well here behind. And so I just cried for hours. I got on the plane, I was crying, just because I was afraid of the unfamiliar. And getting there took sort of courage that I didn't know that I had, and it's sort of allowing yourself to relent to things, just let it happen. Because if it's not meant to happen, then it wouldn't. And so I figured out that if I just, this is going to sound so cliche, but to breathe into it, if I just breathe into it, when it got a bit crazy, breathe, because it really did, and there were times where I felt like, I'm nuts, I don't know what's happening, and I don't know how to keep up with things, and admitting when you need the help, because it got to a point where I was double booking myself for things, and I'm over there and it's all new and you're saying yes to everything, but you can't remember that you said yes to that, and that's happening at the same time, but you don't have any help, and you're like, okay, I can't do this on my own, I have to get some help. But there's a part of you that's like, is that dramatic? Am I being dramatic about that? Can I just do it by myself? And then to be able to admit when you need the help is so capital in moving forward that if you don't admit that, it can be detrimental. And I really need to admit it to myself, because I was slower than the things that were happening. So when I realized that, I had to make a shift to make sure that I could at least keep up with it. And I'm still learning, because every day something new happens. Right from the day I got to The Colour Purple to do the show on stage, every day something new has happened. And when I think, oh, okay, I've gotten used to this, we got used to the show, a film comes along. And when okay, it's a nice role, I can get used to that film role, another film role comes along. Oh, you're singing at the Kennedy Center. Oh, you're doing, and so you have to learn to sort of just let it be. That's one of the things, and it sounds really crazy, but it's one of the things that Oprah would say, just breathe into it, let it be. If it's supposed to happen, it's going to happen. And I had to keep reminding myself that I was able to do these things, but it was okay to ask for assistance and for help. And it was okay to say I didn't know something, and to go and ask someone who might know, and to admit to the times when I was completely clueless about things, and to admit to the times when I felt sad, or reach out to someone when I felt alone, and admit I might need a dog now because I'm by myself a lot of the time and I'm flying everywhere, and that's the only way I can stay grounded, so I have a little puppy now. And I was like, just allowing myself to key into the things that I might need that will keep me happy and sane, because your mental health is really important. And if you can keep on top of that, then you can probably keep on top of everything else. I realized that fitness wasn't just a thing to keep me fit and to look good, but it was a really great place for me to go to meditate and to think about things and to process things. So for some people, it's reading a book or writing in a diary or something. And I don't keep diaries. I don't keep biographies. I don't do that because I just don't have the time, and when I'm at home I want to sleep because I'm awake most of the time. And so the way for me to do that is to take the hour and go and run or get on a bike or do a workout, because it means that I can reprocess things that are going on and work them out for myself, because it's that hour that I take for myself. Finding the things that help you keep moving forward, that's how I'm working through the transitions, because I'm still working through them, and they're still happening. Like, this is a transition. This is a massive one. So I'm learning to find the things that help me process and move forward. Yeah, that's how I think. Good to see you again.
Okay, this lady here, and then we'll go just.
Hiya, I'm a young actor myself, and I find you so inspirational. I was just wondering, you said one of those scenes took 22 takes. How do you sort of manage to stay present and focused during that? Have you got any tips of like, because obviously everything's going on and it's so fast and you're probably exhausted, but is there anything?
The thing to keep in mind is that when you watch it, you don't know that there are 22 takes. Yeah. So I have to keep in mind that at take 15, if they pick take 15 and it's dry as heck, that's what you see. So I don't want that for you, and I certainly don't want that for me. So I have to keep in my mind that whatever take they choose, I still want you to get something from it. So I make it interesting for myself. So this time I'm gonna push more for the "You Can't Hurry Love," and I'm gonna make that sing more, and I'm gonna send that message more. Or "You Just Have to Wait," that's the message. You have to wait for it, it'll come to you. So finding different things in the stories, different stories to tell within the song, because a song is a story. A song is a narrative of some sort. So if you're going to do that many takes, you find small bits in the song that you're going to send to whoever's watching it and make them understand something about it, so that by take 22 or take 27 or whichever take, you're still discovering as well. Keep the excitement of discovery alive within learning a song and within singing that, so that when you perform it for the 22nd time, it still means something to you. You know, your favorite song, it never loses interest because you still find things in it, yeah? Happy Birthday has been sung 1,000,000 times, but we never get bored of singing it because somehow we manage to find 1,000,000 ways of singing it because we care about the person we're singing it for, and there are millions of people in this world who we have to sing it for, and so it never loses interest, and but the song is the same. The tune never changes, but somehow it still is alive because in that moment it means something. So if you keep the meaning, you keep the story alive, it will never ever lose your attention. You won't lose interest in it because it means something. You're trying to do something with it. Yeah?
Yeah, thank you.
Firstly, I'd like to reiterate all the great things said today. Me and my friends love you, and I've followed you for a long time. So we just saw the pictures of you as Harriet Tubman released the other day. I just wanted to ask, how was that process and what the film was like and stuff like that?
That process was both inspiring, terrifying, harrowing. It's probably the most physical I've ever been in my entire life. I had to use parts of myself that I didn't know I had, which probably was right, which meant that I felt like I was doing the right thing. I don't think I'll ever forget doing it. And I was really lucky to be doing it with the people I was doing it with. To have Casey, the director, at the helm was paramount, to be honest, because she really did hold my hand the whole way through it, literally and figuratively. And it was, a life-changing thing for me to have been a part of. I don't think I'll ever forget it. Yeah.
So Harriet Tubman was a 19th century
abolitionist.
I can say abolitionist.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's a film that you've just finished.
Just wrapped. I wrapped in December.
There must be such a weight of responsibility, playing someone that has been so iconic, that has such a legacy. How did the film come about, and was there kind of a fear of stepping into these shoes?
The film, so Deborah Martin Chase and Daniela Taplin, the producers, they had come to see The Colour Purple. Again, this Colour Purple thing, it's never going to leave my life.
I should have said Tony Award winning for The Colour Purple.
It really changed everything, and they had come to see the show. And I think the wonderful thing about that show is that I had to use all of me, every ounce. And I think that that's sort of what they saw. And I sat down to talk with Deborah. I don't think she told me what we were talking about until I got there. sitting down in this hotel, I think, and she says that there's a script that's about, it's a Harriet Tubman biopic, and she thinks I'm right for the role. But it's not ready yet. So I said, okay. And I waited. And then she comes back and they finally found someone to direct, but the script isn't quite right, so they're rewriting the script. So this is like a year on. It took about 3 years to get to the place where it was in Casey's hands. Casey had rewritten it, and she was directing it. And I just stuck with them because I believed in it, very much so. And I feel like this story is such an important one to tell. It's crazy that it hasn't been told yet. And I think that everyone needs to learn about this woman. There's always a fear when you're playing someone who means a lot to a lot of people. And you want to make sure that you do her justice. So leading up to getting to the set, there's always like, oh my God, what am I doing? Am I doing this? Is this going to be okay? I hope. And it's nothing to do with not wanting to make a fool of yourself. It's everything to do with making sure that you do this person justice. And that's the thing that I was trying to do. I hope I did.
Sure you did. Sure you did.
And you know, right down to, I'm so stubborn, so it came down to, I didn't want anyone to do any of the physical things that she had to do because I felt like it would lend itself to me knowing about her story and being able to tie that to her emotional path, her emotional story, and it does. So when you spend 18 hours in a corset, but you've been running most of the day in that corset, and then you do a scene where your sister's died, you sort of think, how did she do this? How does a human being do this? And she did.
And survive, yeah.
Yeah, and survive it. And those are the things I wanted to, asking for those things to make sure that I could tell her story as fully as possible was important to me.
Got someone with the mic just here. It's coming to you.
Thanks so much. I thought you were terrific in Bad Times. And I wanted to ask you a bit more about your experience as an actor who also is a singer, and how you integrated those two aspects of your performance in the film, because that singing is absolutely central. There are these long scenes, which is essentially your voice and the other characters who your character can't even see most of the time, reacting, and their character development comes from, or is shown to the audience through how they react to your voice. And could you say a little bit about how you prepare for that, physically and in terms of performance, where you're acting a character who is a singer, who is singing to an audience she can't see, who in turn is reacting invisibly? It's a many-layered performance.
Yeah, thank you. I always sort of start at the beginning, so I knew what I would do is I'd ask who would be in the room at that point. And so in that scene that you saw where it's a double-sided mirror, so she can see in and I can see out, when we're filming it, I can see her. So at first they decided that they wanted to do it to track. So we tracked it so that when they were filming the other person, they could just use the track so they could be in the room. And I didn't like that. Stubborn, again. Because I felt like it didn't give the other person what they needed for their scene. It didn't make sense for me to be in the scene singing live in my part and then leaving for this person to react to a recorded version of it, because you can't get the communication isn't there. And I felt like it doesn't make sense for me not to be in the room, so it means I can't, even if I can't see them, I'm still communicating something. So I just asked to be in the room with whoever was supposed to be the audience at that time, so that they could hear me live, and I could communicate it to them live, so that they could get a live reaction from that person. And prepping for that was just about making sure that I simply hydrated enough to make sure I didn't run out of steam. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I'm a fitness fanatic, and all of those things lend themselves to making sure that you're a healthy vocalist. And then on top of which, I've always considered myself both, not more of one or more of the other. And I get asked that question a lot if I prefer singing or if I prefer acting, and I don't prefer either one more than the other. It's just that I'm, again, stubborn, and I like to run them alongside each other. And so I try to make sure that if I'm in a scene where I'm singing, the communication and the truth-telling and the storytelling doesn't disappear because I'm singing a song, because that's useless to anyone. So I try to make sure that whatever I'm trying to say, whether it be with my eyes or with the lilt in that note, that it is still telling you a story, it is still communicating something to someone, because that's essentially what I hope I'm good at doing. So I don't think I'm going to change that.
As you pass it along, thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
This might seem like a little bit of a vague question, but I've been trying to figure out a different way of saying it and I can't, so I'm just going to ask guys. What's it like being a black female actress from London living in America? Because I'm an actress as well, and I'm going to America this year, and I'm scared, just like you. And I don't really know how else to ask it. I just want to know.
I mean, I feel like I've had a good time, but I don't know that it's to do with, you know, me being British. I think it's, I don't know, there's just a community of people that are waiting to welcome you, really. That's how it's felt for me, and you know.
I'm going in a bit more blind than you though, because you already had something set up, didn't you?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yes. And so do you have help out there?
Kind of. I have an agent over here.
Okay.
But I've been to drama school and everything, and all my friends keep saying, just go. So I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna go.
Amazing. Do you know, what do you want to do when you first get there?
Well, I'd like to do theatre, so I'm in the stage right now of contacting like casting directors and agents in America.
Okay.
And this is like within the last month. This has not been, I'm not going till June.
Okay.
So I have time.
Well, let me get your details.
Yeah.
That's
please.
what it's like in America.
Thank you.
Let me see if I can help. It's essentially about like connections. What I've found is that people are really good at connecting with people. Like the amount of people I've met, the amount of people that are just open-armed, they want to help. There's help now. People are trying to help each other, which is, we could use more of it, but it's there. And so that's what it's like.
Okay, we've got time for 2 more questions. Someone's got a mic there, and then can we bring a mic to this gentleman in the front row? I'll come to you next. Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Well done.
Thank you.
And thank you for this and the encouragement and what you just did. What advice would you give people and the industry here that they could use to be more supportive in the way that you've just demonstrated?
Don't be afraid to share. You know, if your colleague gets it and you've been helpful in that, then it's likely that your colleague is going to remember that. There's more than you think for everyone, and I think that we forget that we don't necessarily have to be in competition with each other, but because we're constantly thinking about who our competition is and who is going to get something, who isn't going to get something, and why she got it and why I did, we forget that actually we're all in the same boat. So we all want to work, and we want to work on good things. So if we work together, we could probably create things ourselves anyway, you know, and that's the point. So if you encourage me to go and write something, then I write something and I think, oh, there's a role in this for him. Then I'm going to come back to you and go, hey, that thing that you encouraged me to write, I wrote it and there's something in it for you. And that's how it works. It's like the law of attraction. You give and then you get. That's just how it works. And you might not know when it's coming, but it will, you know. Just saying it. There are times when I've looked at something and I've gone, that is not right for me, but I do know who it is right for. How about you go and get her? Or someone says to me that this project's come up and it's really cool, and I'm like, oh, I just know who can do this. Let me tell you. Because essentially, my giving out is going to come back to me somehow. Karma works that way. And I think that we would serve ourselves better here to remember that, so that we can help each other.
And what about for the industry? Because for here, because the reason why I asked that is I've had some experience in America, and it is what you say.
Yeah.
People are ready to work, and it's lightning quick, and it's very collaborative.
Yeah.
And then you come back here.
That's what we have to remember here. The fact is, we don't do that here.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? We don't do that. It's not give and take here. It's sort of like, I'm doing this. Yeah. Even in an audition room, the amount of times I've been in an audition room here, and it's like, who are you going up for? Oh yeah, okay. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to, do you know, so I went up for this, and I saw you at, oh my gosh, how did you get that? How were you? And there's no conversation. It's like, it's so cold to one another that you can't communicate like that. There's no communication. And just it's like psyching each other out for what though? Like, in the end, someone's gonna get it. It doesn't matter whether it's you or me, someone has to get it. So starting there is just never a good place to start from, because when you leave the room, you're like, why was she such a bitch? Why did you have to be like that? It doesn't have to be that rude. What for? Like, when you could just have had a nice conversation, and both of you could have been at ease, you could have gone in the room, and you never know. If that person got it, then they may have found another role for you because you guys were in a really good mood when you both walked in the room. But because one of you was in your feelings and the other one didn't want to have a conversation, now both of you are really tense. One of you's walked in, and you might do better than the other, and now neither of you might get it. But it's as small as having a conversation with each other and making each other feel at ease and go, oh my God, you've got this, don't worry about it. Just go in there and do your best. Go in there and do your best. Be amazing. Good luck. And now you've both made room for each other. Whether or not you go into the room and do the same thing, neither one of you really knows, but you've made space for one another. And to be in the room knowing that that person outside made space for you, and I made space for that person, well, now you might have made space for each other in the same show. That's what we need to do here. It's communicating with each other and not seeing each other completely as competition, because that is just not helpful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Responsibility of the last question.
Hello, down here. Hi, just to say, I also low-key kind of followed you to New York and saw Colour Purple, and you were great.
Not so low-key anymore, though.
Yeah, my question was, because obviously you mentioned that you got into RADA, and I don't know if anyone else in this room knows, but RADA is like one of the best drama schools in the UK. So, well done, I guess. Yeah, amazing achievement. But what I'd like to ask you is, obviously kind of going forward, obviously the audition process, the whole 3-year process, and obviously trying to get work afterwards, what advice would you give to, say, young actors trying to do what you're trying to do? Or like if you were to go back in time and give yourself advice, what would you say at that stage?
I am vehemently myself all of the time. So the thing I knew that I had on my side was who I was. So when I was at drama school, the way I got an agent was completely different to everybody else. I knew that I was really great at singing and I could tell stories through song. So I set up a cabaret in the bar with a good friend of mine and invited agents to come along. It had nothing to do with the showcase that we had, because we did the showcase, and by that point I had an agent, because I asked someone to come and see me in a cabaret, because I knew that that's what I could give. So you can't be afraid of the thing that you're really good at. So if it's something, if you want to set up something and have people come, have people come. There's nothing wrong, there's no rule that says you can't do that. The audition process is that when you find your agent, do not be afraid to speak to them and tell them what you want to do. And don't make your dreams small, because that's what will come to you. The fact is, I want everything. You know, I want it all, and I want to do it all, and I've always wanted that, whether I was here or there, and I was willing. The reason I fought for the Colour Purple was because I wanted the Colour Purple. Someone said to me, would you play the understudy? I was like, no. Well, why? I said, because I want to play Celie. I want to do that. You wouldn't take the cover. No, there's nothing wrong with doing the cover. It's just that I want to play her. I want the responsibility of doing that every night. That's what I want. And that's what I went to get. Now, if you want to be an ice skater who also manages to do Shakespeare, then do that. If that is what you want, do that. There's no dream too big that you cannot achieve if you allow yourself to speak about it and to dream about it and to talk about it and to plan and to find a way to do it. Like, there's always a way, you know? Going forward, you just have to make sure that you make those needs and wants clear to the people who are working with you, because they essentially are they're like the conduit. They're the messengers. So you give them something, they take it to someone else, and they tell this person, hey, he's really great at this, and this is what he would like to do. Can we have a meeting? You know? And that's it's connections again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that we can all agree that you are truly inspirational, and we can't wait to see everything you've got coming up. We've completed 2 films, 3 more? 5. Okay. Feel like an underachiever, right? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Cynthia Erivo.